guys. So today I was going to read you my thesis on terrorist activity in the West, stemming from the Middle East and Northern Africa, funded by private Western companies in an attempt to fuel conflict between the West and the East in order to gain access to oil-rich territories. But I couldn't find it, so today I'm going to read this magazine about BMXing instead. So this magazine came with a order I made once, and it has a how-to section for learning the basics and seeing how the pros do tricks, equipment, how to build and maintain your new bike, and bike anatomy. Work out which parts are right for you. This may be multiple parts, as I don't want to make my videos too long, because it takes me a long time to upload the videos, well, mainly a long time to export them. I'm ordered a new computer, which should be coming soon, which hopefully will solve all of those problems for me. I'll probably do a video about that too. So, let's get started. Other energy drinks are available. Okay, the contents. How to, advanced, introduction. We won't go through all of these. It's worth noting that if you would like to learn how to BMX, it's really simple. All you need is a BMX bike, this how-to magazine, and the ability to read and remember information, and then you can be a pro BMXer too, just like me. Okay, the introduction. When you start out riding BMX, even the very basic moves can seem challenging. We've put together this guide to help you find your feet. We'll go through very basic but fundamental moves like hopping, to tricky grinds like Smiths, and finally you can see how the professionals do some of the most advanced and cutting-edge moves today. There's information on building and maintaining your bike, rundowns on why components have different geometry, descriptions on places to ride, and some simple but handy tips on etiquette when riding. The best way to view this guide is as helpful pointers that will hopefully assist your learning and help you to understand BMX a little bit better. Progressing on your bike can be a very rewarding thing. The buzz of pulling a new trick, whether that's a 180 on flat or a flare on a 6-foot quarter, never fades. The main thing to remember though is to take it at your own pace and enjoy your time on your bike. Spending a sunny day down the trails, an afternoon down the park, or a Sunday in the city with your friends is what it's all about really. Any pro will tell you that. One of the beauties of BMX is that there are no rules. You can take your own learning at your own pace, so don't try and race through all the tricks in here. Just take it at your own rate and make sure you're enjoying it. That's really what it's all about. folks, I'll talk about the frame quickly though, what these different things mean. So here's your BMX frame. You've got your head tube, top tube, standover height, which is determined by the length of your seat tube and your chainstays. So we'll start with top tube. The top tube runs from the head tube and finishes beneath the seat. The size of a frame is generally referred to in top tube lengths, and this will often correlate with your height. To put it simply, taller riders generally have longer frames and vice versa. Anything at 21 inches and over is considered long. 20.5 is the middle ground, and anything around 20 inches considered shorter. There's no right or wrong length of frame to buy. Height is a good guideline, but it comes down to personal preference. Head tube. The very front tube of a BMX is called the head tube. The angle of this will affect the steering of the bike, with certain angles helping particular tricks. An angle of 74.5 degrees is standard and practical with most disciplines within BMX. Steeper head angles are favored by flatland riders and are becoming more common on street frames, whilst mellower angles often favored by racers and trails riders. Steeper generally means more responsive frames, but can be slightly twitchier at speed and in the air, which is why racers and trails riders prefer shallower angles. The change is really more than a degree each way. Standover height. The length of the seat tube will change depending on the standover height of the frame. This can alter without having too much of an effect on how the bike actually rides, but some riders like the standover being lower as they think it can help with tricks like tail whips. Other riders prefer the standover to be higher for more aesthetic reasons, thinking it gives the bike a more classic look. Chainstays. The rear end of the bike can be measured by the length of the chainstays. Shorter back ends are favoured by flatland and street riders as they can help with your hop. With ramp and trails riders spending more time in the air, a longer back end can feel more stable at speed and when jumping. Okay. They didn't mention the seat stays, or the dropouts, or the bottom tube, down tube, or the BB, but whatever. No. Safety. No. Toolkit. In my other videos, I think that's my pump. Yeah. It's basically the exact same pump. Tools. You need, realistically, a really good socket set. I'd say you need an adjustable spanner, a good set of Allen keys, chain breaker, definitely need a chain breaker, a pump obviously. What's this? Puncture kit? No, just buy new inner tubes, they're so cheap, doesn't really matter. A pedal spanner, basically. This is really thin compared to here, which it needs to be to fit in the gap to undo pedals and tighten them. It's probably the most annoying thing to try and tighten and loosen. How to fix a puncture. How to true wheel. Maybe another time. How to fix a chain. Maybe another time. Okay. Where to ride. Deciding what you ride will often be determined by where you live. Not really. Here's a rundown of 4 popular types of riding and some hints and tips about them. Street. Street riding is one of the most accessible types of riding you can get into. All you have to do is walk out of the door. Empty car parks or even quiet stretch of road are all you'll need to master the very basic tricks. Street riding is very much what you make of it. It's surprising how much fun even the small stuff by your house can be. It can also be the hardest on you and your bike. The terrain is notoriously unforgiving. Bikes tend to be built stronger with shorter back ends, higher standover heights, and slightly steeper front ends than trails or ramp-orientated frames. Frame geometry is explained better on pages 16 to 17. Just like with any other type of BMXing, there's no rules to riding street. Using your surroundings creatively is the thing to remember. Security can be an issue at times. The best way to deal with any confrontation is to be polite and leave when asked. This way you won't ruin any future chances of hitting the same spots. Sundays are good days to ride street in towns and cities, as this is when they are the emptiest. Skate parks. Skate parks first appeared in California during the 80s, when skateboarding was experiencing its first boom. The balls and transitions that first appeared were very simple. They were recreations of the empty swimming pools and banks that skateboarders, and in some cases BMXs, had been making use of. The UK started to get its first skate parks in the early 70s, as the continuing boom in the US hit our shores. Some of these parks can still be seen today in places such as Harrow, Romford, Southsea, and Livingston in Scotland. Even after all those years, they still provide some of the most challenging terrain available. Skate parks have never been so popular in the UK as they are today. Most are free and unsupervised, and while safety equipment is advised, it's often up to you to make a decision on whether or not you want to wear a helmet. Long-lasting concrete parks are common in many towns and cities. Plazas, which recreate rails and ledges, have also become common, sometimes even becoming incorporated into street spots themselves, as can be seen at Milton Keynes bus station or South Bank in London. Wooden parks are still common in the UK, with some councils you've got to be prepared to dig. There's no point turning up every weekend wanting to ride when you haven't even lifted a shovel. Locals soon grow tired of that. People will appreciate the effort and hopefully be okay with you riding. You've got to remember that these places aren't council run, so locals will be protective about the location of these places. You won't find lists on the internet telling you the whereabouts of trails, and there's a good reason for that. What's even better than simply turning up at an already established set of jumps and mucking in is to start your own. Over a weekend with a few mates, you'll be surprised how much you can get done. Imagine how much you can get in a month, then two, and so on. Now you can build exactly what you want. Location is everything with trails. Ideally, you'll be looking for a spot that's completely isolated, near a water source. This will come into its own during dry summers, and with good quality mud. Sandy trails will dry and drain off quicker than clay, but will take more maintenance in the summer months. Trails in woodland always have a nice feel to them, but the shade will also mean any wetness will hang around for longer. The best thing to do is to find a good place to start digging. Once you've got that, you're halfway there. Hopefully everything else will fall into place afterwards. Racing. Although racing might seem a long way from such aspects of BMX like street riding, it's essentially where it all began. It was kids racing BMXs and the bikes that preceded these that eventually started dirt jumping and riding street. Whilst the competitiveness of racing might not appeal to everyone, racing can teach you a lot about riding your bike smoothly. The UK's forte brothers are testament to that. While over in the US, many of the top pros have raced at some point. Even Van Homan, one of the greatest street riders out there, raced BMX when he was younger. Racetracks are fun even without the competition, but if you feel like you'd like to compete, most racetracks have gate practice once a week, and then throughout the summer races happen across the country. Websites such as www.bmxtalk.com have more info on this. To begin with, you can race on any type of bike you want, but race bikes are generally bigger and lighter, with long back ends and shallower head angles. They tend to be very specific to track racing, so if you're thinking about getting one, be certain that you won't be wanting to ride street or park. Not only will it feel sluggish when you hop, it's not built for harsh drops and grinds. Younger kids might race track on smaller, lightweight bikes before stepping up to 20-inch BMXs. Brakes and safety gear are all necessary for real races, and the surfaces of tracks are notoriously unforgiving, so get padded up. In fact, it is compulsory to wear full face helmet when racing. Okay. Time to get into technique. First things first. Before you start learning the basic tricks, it's best to know exactly how you need to grip and stand on your bike. Some of this might seem obvious even to the newest somewhat of a grey area within BMX, as there isn't a really right or wrong on what stance you choose to adopt. Rather, there's an unwritten attitude that it's better for your front foot to be forward from your rear peg. This isn't affected by which side you grind on, as can be seen in images 1 and 2. Both these riders are regular, yet grind on opposite sides. The unflattering term used for riders whose foot positioning differs from this is goofy. The term also stretches to the direction of your spin. Regular riders spin into their rear foot and vice versa with a goofy stance. Having a goofy stance won't affect your riding. Some of the best riders in the world are goofy. Certain tricks can be easier, and what's also common is riders simply lose a preferred way to spin or grind altogether, which can't be a bad thing. Sometimes it might just be the side you grind on or the way you spin which is goofy. Essentially, it doesn't really matter. There are no right or wrongs on this one. Holding the bars. When you're holding the grips, make sure you have your hands fully wrapped around. If you're running a break, which is advised if you're just getting started, 1 or 2 fingers will be enough to pull the lever. Any more will give you less grip on the bars and therefore make your hands liable to slip off. Foot positioning. The best position for your feet is so that the ball of your foot sits comfortably on the pedal. The benefits of this are noticeable when pedaling. When the foot is positioned here, you'll find it easier to pedal faster, have increased stability, and also find that some impacts from drops will be absorbed more effectively. If the foot is positioned too far forward, like in the other example, any impacts are forced right onto the heel and upwards to the knees. Like this, any impact will gain little absorption from the movement in the ankle. How to. We've got 33 tricks that'll show you, frame by frame, the techniques to do a wide variety of moves. During the following pages, we'll go through things as simple as dropping into a ramp, right through to 540ing a quarter. Whilst you don't have to be systematic about it, it's often easier in the long run if you work through it like we've planned it here. This is especially true with the basic moves. For example, it's better to learn feebles before you have a go at ice pick grinds. Just remember to take it at your own pace. There's no rush to get these dialed in. So I won't be doing all 33 tricks. I think this will be a 2-parter. But still. Let's begin, shall we? Oh, look at this little tick box. Hop on flat, or a bunny hop. Whilst it's possibly the most basic BMX trick you'll learn, it's also the most fundamental. Once you get this one right, the bars into your waist. Imagine you're jumping on your feet on flat. You need to burst upwards to get off the ground. The motion isn't that different on a bike. As you do this, you'll be pulling the weight of the bike upwards with you. As it does this, you need to start pushing forward with your arms, moving the bars away from you. The back end should continue coming up as your feet almost lift and help the bike up beneath you. Your arm should still be pushing forward to maximize the tug and therefore gaining more height. Once you've peaked and you feel yourself coming down, you need to start pushing down with your feet, just enough to make the back wheel land slightly first. This will absorb the impact much better than landing with both wheels or on the front. When you've landed, compress your body slightly back down into the bike, bending the knees and the elbows. This will absorb some more of the impact of hitting the floor, and your joints will thank you after 10 years riding too. Ha ha ha. That's hop on flat. Okay. Hop on / off. Hopping on and off things will probably be the next thing you'll be wanting to learn. Once you've mastered the hop, what you're hopping onto depends on the height you can hop, but the fundamentals remain the same. The start of hopping onto an object is much the same as the first 3 steps on the previous page. The difference here is that there is a specific time you'll need to hop. You can practice in a car park, using the spaces as guides for when to jump. You'll also need to be going slightly faster than just hopping on flat. Put in an extra crank, so you get that extra bit of momentum once you've landed on the top of the object. You need to be around a bike and a half length distance from what you're hopping onto when you start your hop. This varies greatly depending on what you're hopping onto and the speed you're hitting something. Or not hitting something, hopefully. But if you're much closer than this, you can risk catching your wheel on the way up. If you're traveling at an object slightly faster than walking pace, use that as a guideline. You don't need to be hopping higher than needed, just enough to comfortably land and continue rolling forward. You want to be landing slightly compressed. Again, this will absorb some of the impact and help you keep rolling along. Keep balanced and get ready for dropping off the end. If the obstacle you've hopped onto is quite short, stay a little compressed. As you come to the edge of the object, you need to start shifting your weight back on the bike, pulling backwards on the bars as to shift the weight off the front end. Have your knees slightly bent and keep pulling back on the bars, keeping your weight hanging over the back of the end of the bike. For now, don't worry about hopping off the end. Just keep your weight back and maintain the same level of speed as when you hopped on. Speed will help take away some of the impact. As you drop off the object, keep leaning back, so the typo. As you drop off the object, keep leaning back so that your weight is over the rear and get ready to absorb the impact in your bent knees. Compress down when you land, like you would in a normal hop, to take the remainder of the impact and help roll away cleanly. Manual. You can practice the manual whilst you're riding anywhere. It's all about finding your balance point on your back wheel. We'll explain this one a little differently, as to start learning manuals, you don't need to hop onto anything to begin with. Again, the balance point is crucial to work out. Once you've discovered that, manuals on flat or on ledges will become easy. Yeah, boys and girls, easy peasy. To begin with, you need to get comfortable pulling your front wheel off the ground. It can seem like a lot of effort at first, but over time, as you perfect the technique, the bike should start to come up onto the bike wheel. I think they mean back wheel, without much effort. For starters, just get used to pulling back on the bars. Don't worry too much about the distance travelled. As you can see in frame 4, your body needs to be hanging over the rear wheel, with your arms extended on the bars. This is the balance point of the manual. You need to be getting into a position similar to this. Depending on height, weight, and bike, they'll all be slightly different. And then you'll notice how to grind. And then you'll notice how you travel further on the back wheel. Ignore the grind a bit. That was a brain fart. Once you feel comfortable pulling back into that position, you need to start balancing the manual for a distance. Speed helps for manuals, so roll along the ground around jogging pace, or faster if you feel comfortable. Balancing manuals is all in the legs. Your arms want to be maintaining the height of the front wheel for the duration. Your thighs and hips should shift your body weight backwards and forwards to maintain the balance point. Don't be scared of looping out and coming off the back. It's part of learning manuals. Your balance point is a fine line just before tipping backwards, so you need to be prepared for a few loop outs. By loop outs they mean leaning back too far and the bike popping out from underneath you and you falling backwards. But if you take your feet off the pedals and jump onto the ground, you shouldn't fall on your back and hit your head. I don't. Once you feel like you've worked out your balance point, the next thing to do is to start hopping into manuals. Again, speed is an overriding factor, especially when hopping onto things. It really will help you balance. As you can see in frame 3, when you hop into a manual, you need to almost land straight into the balance point. Have your weight shifted slightly forward, and as you touch down, squat down that extra bit into the balance point. This will save you looping out onto the curb of a ledge, and also help you maintain your speed. Coming off the ledge, you need to maintain the height of the front end and simply roll off. The back wheel should come down first without any effort. Okay, this is going to be the last one tonight for part 1. Double peg, the double peg grind. Number 1. Approach the ledge. We'll use a ledge as an example, as that's what we've got here, but the instructions on a flat rail would be very similar. Approach the ledge at the same shallow angle as the feeble. This time you'll need to go slightly faster. As you hop, aim the pegs towards the ledge by pushing the bike towards your grind side slightly. Try and get the pegs on at the same time and smooth as possible. This will help you keep your momentum. As your pegs come up onto the ledge, your body weight now needs to come up over the bike and hold it balanced. Keep slightly compressed and try to keep your body level over the ledge. You can alter your balance point on the pegs by moving the bars side to side. It shouldn't be big movements though, just enough to keep your weight exactly over the pegs and ledge. If you're doing this on a flat rail, the bike is much more likely to move sideways. Keeping your bike balanced by moving the bars side to side will come into its own now, but the balance point is basically the same. You'll notice how that extra bit of speed you hit the ledge with can help your balance. Again, just try and keep the weight level over the bike. This is paramount with double peg grinds. Pulling out of a double peg can take quite a lot of effort to begin with. The front end of your bike will drop off the end of the ledge unless you really pull all your weight back onto the rear peg. Really pull back on this one, much more than you would in a feeble. Notice how the weight is really over the back. It's easy to keep dropping the front wheel on exit. Just keep practicing and just keep pulling up and leaning back. Eventually you'll get the technique. This one can take a bit of upper body strength. That's why I'm so good at them. I'm joking. That is where we'll leave it for tonight. I'll try and get part 2 out soon. Thank you for watching. Sleep well, guys.